If I can speak autobiographically here, this is not something that was introduced after the church began accepting paid baptism. That happened in the early 90s. But this church was established in the mid-70s. This church was planted in the mid-70s. And we have sought to be welcoming to children the entire time. We've sought to be welcoming to children the entire time. There were doctrinal things to work out, but you can have doctrinal differences on baptism, paedobaptism, cradobaptism, paedobaptism. You can differ on that and still be welcoming the children. We want you children, I want to speak to those little ones here directly. We want you to feel like this is your church. We want you to look around at all the grown-ups and think, these are my people. These are my people. This is my church. I'm growing up in this church, and they're encouraging me, exhorting me, teaching me how to believe in Jesus and how to walk with him. And you might say, and this is where our assumptions from the Enlightenment come in. You say, well, but see, this 2-year-old, he doesn't know anything, right? Kind of like the rest of us. I don't think this child understands the Lord's Supper as well as he should. I don't understand the Lord's Supper as well as we should. Nobody understands the Lord's Supper as well as we should. So when you say, I don't think that this child could pass a theology exam, I don't think this child could pass a minor quiz on all the details of what the Lord's Supper means. So isn't it hazardous to baptize them and bring them to Christ this way? No. When you first bring your baby home from the hospital, brand new baby, and you should be thinking thoughts when the nurse hands you the baby. You should be thinking things like, if it's your first baby, is this allowed? Here's an immortal soul. Take him home. Good luck. And you say, is this okay? Is this all right? Well, when you take the baby home, do you speak English to the child? Yeah, you do. But I want to tell you, your baby doesn't understand a word you're saying. The baby doesn't know English. Why are you speaking English to him when the baby doesn't know English? The baby couldn't pass an English exam. The baby couldn't pass the most rudimentary English exam. The baby would fail. F. Do over. The reason you speak English to a baby, and you do it the next day, and the next day, and the next day, is you want the baby to be a native speaker. You want the baby to be a native speaker. And the way you become a native speaker is by having it spoken to you years before you understand everything that's going on. And then we're going to wait like 12 years to explain the grammar of it. That's just the natural process. We want the children in this congregation to grow up speaking the sacraments as native speakers. We want them to be native speakers. We do want them to love Jesus. We want them to understand the gospel. We want them to come to Christ. We want them to know that apart from faith, all of this is worse than useless. All the apparatus of Christian worship, hymns, Lord's table, baptism, pulpits, all of these things are worse than useless. The prophet says, God cannot endure iniquity and solemn assembly. The more fancy it gets, the more ornate it gets, if there's iniquity there, God can't stand it. Away with the noise of your songs, he says. So we want to have a place where evangelical fire burns hot. But we want all the coals to be burning, including the little ones. We want all the coals to be welcome. We want everyone welcome. And we can do this, Presbyterian and Baptist together, if we agree to disagree, as we have done for a quarter of a century. We agree to disagree on the practice of baptism itself, but we want the culture of the church to welcome the little ones.